You're listening to the best local sports show. Boots, Bats and Balls on Six Towns Radio.
We've got Steve on the phones today. Unfortunately can't be with us. But Steve, just want to talk a little bit about Leek Town and probably more about the loss of Chris McMullen at Leek Town, who sadly passed away this week and was obviously someone you were very close to at the club.
Yeah, it's been a really sad week this week. I mean, to be honest, mate, I don't think many of us knew how poorly Chris was, and therefore it comes a real shock when we learned of his sad passing. Like I say, I played with Chris at Leek for a few seasons. I played against him before I went back to the club, having been away for a couple of seasons, and just a really good guy, very committed on the pitch, totally committed in fact, but afterwards, whether it was with me as an opponent or me as a teammate or any other opponent, he was always there to offer a hand and a chat, and it'll be a real sad loss to certainly to football in Leek, because obviously, when he finished at Leek Town, he then went and did a good stint at Leek CSOB, only standing down as chairman last summer. So yeah, it's been a real blow to us this week. Yeah,
I guess a blow, as you say, very much a blow to Leek and local non-league football. He'd be widely missed on the non-league football scene.
Yeah, and if anybody's been on the forum, I've been on quite a bit this week. He's one of them people. He's very, very rarely would you find someone who's got a bad word to say about him. You know what I mean? And he's been around the scene a long time as a player, and then a manager at Staffordshire County League level, and then North West Counties League level. And he just always got time for you, always going to chat. I mean, one of the great disappointments, like you always say at this time, why don't we see enough of each other? And, that old team of the late 80s, early 90s, we hardly ever see each other, to be fair. But I've bumped into him a few times around the last couple of seasons at various grounds, and the odd occasion I've been over at Leek. And again, it's, within 2 or 3 minutes of being in his company, it's just like you've gone back 20 years, and it's just like the old days. So that'll be the thing that I'll particularly miss about him.
Yeah, I think a lot of people probably miss that sort of if he was that sort of guy. I mean, I didn't know Chris personally. I'd probably come across him a couple of times in non-league football, but didn't know him that well, to be honest. But obviously you're a lot closer and would be more affected by this, Steve, than most, I guess.
Yeah, and I am, and it surprised me. Like I say, it's not as if we're that close these days. I speak to him, a couple of times a year, as I say, when I bump into him, but it really has brought home, that, I mean, he's so young as well. I mean, he's a bit younger than me, he's early 50s, and I don't know, mate, you don't expect to lose people at that age, you know what I mean? Especially someone who's been involved in sport and has been, even now and relatively fit and all that sort of thing. You just don't expect it, and I've sent a few messages out to some of the guys of that squad who perhaps I've got contacts with, but others haven't, and everybody seems to have really been taken aback by it.
Yeah, again, it might be one of them things, Steve, where it does inspire you to get back together more often, to see each other more often, because it was his career at Leek Town. I mean, he played over 400 games for the club, didn't he?
Yeah, he did, yeah.
And obviously his finest hour was leading Leek out at Wembley.
Yeah, over 400 games, and as I say, that season, that was my first season back in 89-90, and went back with Chris as skipper, and, we were a very determined group of individuals, lots of big characters in the dressing room, which Neil Baker was able to control and cajole and mentor into a successful unit, and it culminated with that, that run to an FA Trophy final at the old Wembley Stadium, which, certainly a day I'll never forget, and it was important for us that we got there playing the way that we always used to. I mean, we were very tight at the back. We used to go away from home, and if we scored once, the game was over. And we carried that on into the trophy run. And considering we played against sides from the conference, which is now obviously the Blue Square Premier, we didn't concede a goal against them until we played Barrow in the final. So we had an impeccable run, and as I say, Chris was instrumental in lots of that, because believe me, when you're playing sides from 2 or 3 levels above you have a lot of defending to do. But we thrived on it, to be honest, and that, like I say, it was probably one of the most successful periods in the club's history. And I know a couple of years later they went on to to make them play in the conference for a couple of years. But it was a golden period, that late 80s to the sort of mid-90s time.
And just put that into context, Steve, about Leek, where they were in the pyramid, and because it was still the lowest ranking club to get to the FA Trophy final, isn't it, Leek? It
is, yeah. I still believe that we hold that, honour sort of thing. Yeah, I mean, at the time it was football conference, Vauxhall Conference as it was then sponsored by, and then there was a Northern Premier League, a Southern Premier League, and then the feeder leagues into that. The season we got to the final, we won promotion from Northern Premier League First Division, which in essence then is 2 levels below the conference. And we played the following season and subsequent seasons in the Northern Premier League Premier Division. But it was still an unbelievable journey, and as I say, along the way, we took some significant scalps. We beat Telford United in the last 16. We beat Darlington, who were a full-time club, in the quarter-finals, and we beat Stafford Rangers over 2 legs in the semi. And against all those conference sides, didn't concede a goal.
And just tell us about Chris's involvement at the Darlington game, mate.
Yeah. It's come to my mind this week. I mean, we used to play like a 5-3-2 or a 3-5-2, whichever you want to call it, with myself, Chris, and Jack Clues as the centre backs. And we were on a terrific run in the league because we'd been struggling up until Christmas, and then we went on a great run which coincided with the trophy run, and we were challenging for the title as well. And we got to the Darlington game, which I say was the quarter-finals at home. They were still full-time, having just been relegated out of the 4th Division, the Football League. Ex-Stoke boss Brian Little was in charge, and the place was packed. And we came, and in all honesty, we could hardly get out of our own half. We penned us in, but the run-up to the game was that we were struggling defensively in terms of fitness. I think Jack Clues might have even been suspended, I'm not quite sure, but he wasn't available, certainly on the day. Macca was been struggling for a couple of weeks with back and thigh injury, and he was nowhere near fit, And Thursday night, it was like, we weren't quite sure how we were going to play. We got to Saturday. I don't think he was even fit enough to have a fitness test, to be honest. But, Bake got into his head that he could play, and we strapped him up and rubbed him up as best we could. And we played with Chris as the only sort of out-and-out ball-winning centre-half we'd got left in the club, and myself and another lad sweeping up both sides of him, picking up the bits. And like I say, we were under pressure for probably 80 minutes of the 90. They couldn't break us down. Chris was just immense. He headed every ball, kicked every ball, and we scored with about 3 minutes to go and went on to the semi-final. But that's typical Chris McMullen, you know what I mean? Against all the odds, against all the adversity, he was just absolutely outstanding on the day. But it typified the way he used to captain the side. Regardless of how he was doing, how he felt. You could always look to him. He'd always be there with the right words at the right time. Just a great skipper. Yeah,
and of course, Bake promised that you'd be skipper when you moved to the club.
Well, it was a discussion we had in the summer, and I'd skipped the league previously, and then I'd been off for 5 years, 2 years at Winsford United, where I captained the club, and 3 years at Eastwood Hanley, where I captained the club. And when we were discussing me coming back, it became a topic of conversation. Am I expected to captain the club? And Bake being Bake was like, yes, you will, but only when Macca isn't there.
And says everything about Macca, really, mate.
And it was a great decision, you know what I mean? And we did bounce ideas off each other, you know what I mean? And it was, as I say, it was very much a golden time for us. And myself, Jack Clues, Macca, Gary Pearce at left back, and I had a Steve Goldstore, Ian Ellsby at right back, and Robin Simpson in goal. If sides had shots against us, Simo was going mad. If they actually scored against us, then he wasn't a happy bunny at all. So we really prided ourselves on being a very tight defensive unit, and it got us a long way.
Yeah, well, we're going to be talking about, to some of the Stoke City Old Boys a bit later, mate, and they formed a Stoke City Old Boys Association, as you know. It might be time for a Leek Town Old Boys Association, mate, I think, and talking of Leek Town, they're doing very well in the FA Cup, and they've got a big game next week, Steve.
Yeah, they've got a big game next week, and amazingly, I mean, obviously in the week of Chris's passing, they're playing the FA Trophy today as well.
Oh, right.
So that's really poignant in some ways. You know what I mean? The first game after should be after probably his finest hour. But they've got a lot of big games coming up at the moment, and they're on a good run. They've slipped a little bit in the league in terms of their position, but that's because they're progressing in both the major cup competitions, the FA Trophy and the FA Cup. And hopefully they'll win today. I think they return to Radcliffe, and I would suspect it perhaps should be too strong for them. But I just hope there's going to be a minute's applause today at the ground. I mean, Chairman Andy Wayne contacted me yesterday, but unfortunately we're off on holiday in about an hour or so I can't make it today. But there's going to be obviously an outpouring of emotion for Chris today, and I hope that inspires him to go on and get the result. Yeah,
certainly. Hopefully we'll get Andy on next week and chat to him about the Chris and get some more memories about Chris.
Yeah.
Go on.
In terms of like the old boys, I mean, we've been together a couple of times, and unfortunately one of them was a funeral, and the other one we got together. It's 2 years ago now, and I played a game to commemorate the 20th anniversary of the Wembley thing. So maybe you're right, mate. Maybe we should do that on a more regular basis.
Yeah, certainly. Okay. Anything else you want to add, Steve?
No, other than also in the trophy today, Nantwich are playing. They've got a difficult game today. They entertain Redditch, so that's going to be tricky for them. Stafford Rangers, who went out to the FA Cup, head to Southern League Division 1 side Rugby Town today, and Greg's struggling a little bit there, Greg Clowes, to get any sort of consistency. So hopefully he'll get a result there today. So so it's a brief roundup of the non-league this week, I'm afraid.
Yeah, no problem, mate. Other things sometimes take more importance.
Yeah.
Steve, thank you very much for your time, and really appreciate you coming on at this emotional time for you.
Cheers, mate. Thanks very much.
Cheers, mate. Bye.
Ta-ra.
You're listening to the best local sports show. Boots, Bats and Balls on Six Towns Radio.